Shelley Luther will spend the next week in jail. Now the judge.
One salon owner in North Texas, well, she learned that the hard way.
And a hair salon owner who had also opened up her store has been jailed.
Luther tore up the citation to the cheer of the crowd.
But in Dallas, salon owner Shelley Luther faced 7 days in jail for...
So your client is in jail right now?
But yesterday, a woman by the name, and I want you to remember this name, a woman by the name of Shelley Luther in Texas.
We don't support the random jailing of, for example, the woman who's now a household name, Shelley Luther.
I thought it was terrible. I thought he was a terrible judge.
The prisoner would like to speak a word. You need to apologize. What were you thinking? He said you need to apologize to the politicians. I was like, what?
So, sir, if you think the law is more important than kids getting fed, then please go ahead with your decision, but I am not going to shut the salons.
They're putting this woman in jail because she's trying to feed her kids. The whole thing is screwed up.
Well, I'm proud to stand with Shelley Luther, and I'll tell you what happened to her was wrong.
I'm not anyone special. I just know that I have rights. You have rights to feed your children and make income. And anyone that wants to take away those rights is wrong.
We only had people in Washington, D.C. who had half the guts of this patriot play Shelley Luther.
Hi, I'm Shelley Luther, owner of Salon a la Mode. During my year-long journey, I've met with many other people like myself that have had to make critical decisions at crucial moments in their lives. These modern-day heroes were presented with a situation that required them to reach down deep inside and act with strength, courage, and faith. And that's why I'm excited to bring these ordinary, everyday people and their extraordinary defining moments to you on my show, Courage to Stand. Now, I am very excited for you guys to meet my next guest. This is something that you will think is crazy. I think it's crazy, and I'm sure my guest thinks it's crazy until you're in the middle of a court battle. I want to introduce you to my very courageous, amazing guest, Mr. Jeff Younger. Hi.
Hello.
Thanks for coming.
Oh, no, I'm pleased to be here. Thank you for having me.
I wish this was under different circumstances.
Yes.
Your story is unbelievable, and I want people to hear your side of the story because I know that there's other people telling your story as if they know what's going on.
Right.
So in the first segment, let's talk about you, your life before any of this happened, because I want to kind of get to know you, Jeff, as a person. You're a military veteran.
Yep.
Tell us about that.
So I've been in both the Army and the Marine Corps. In my, what I like to call my checkered past or my misspent youth, I was very eager to join the military, and I left home at 15, forged my birth certificate, and actually joined the U.S. Marine Corps in 1980.
So at 15 years old, you're in the Marines?
Yep, I'm in the Marines. I go through recruit training. I get caught in infantry school, going through a security check, and it was actually my, I was from Plainview, Texas, and it was my dentist in Plainview who gave me up.
What? So this guy's way too young. He cannot be.
He can't be right. So I was sent back to the San Diego MCRD, and I was out processed there. They gave me a one-way bus ticket anywhere I wanted to go. And my grandmother had lived in Houston, so I went there, and I worked my way through high school there on my own, lived on my own. Mm-hmm. And when I turned 18, I joined the Army because the Marine Corps wouldn't take me till I was 24 after that stunt.
Yeah.
And I went to Fort Benning. I went through the infantry school there. I went through the airborne school, went into the Ranger indoctrination program, and went back to the airborne school. And an event happened there where there's just a cook, someone I didn't even know, who worked in the chow hall of the 45th Company in the airborne school. And I guess he was gay. And because they discharged him, they gave him a dishonorable discharge for being gay.
And back then they just say that because that's how it was back then. You cannot be gay.
You just can't be gay and be in the military.
Right.
And maybe a lot of people don't know this, but like dishonorable discharges are like way worse than federal felony convictions. You are permanently ineligible for everything. I'm not even sure you could even get Social Security benefits after a dishonorable discharge. It was really a punishment, and it was designed for men who had shown cowardice in battle. And I thought, this was completely inappropriate. They could have if they didn't want to give him an honorable discharge, they could have given him a general discharge.
Right.
Which has some consequences, but nothing like a dishonorable discharge. So I led a protest across the street from the base. Unfortunately, at one point, I crossed the street onto the sidewalk on the side of the base at one point. And they used that as a basis to say that I had protested on base. And they discharged me for consorting with homosexualities. Actually, I think the phrase was, I admitted to consorting with homosexualities.
Consorting.
Yeah. So they gave me an honorable discharge. I left the Army and I became a programmer. And I worked with mathematicians doing operations research problems in the oil field and oil refineries. And I became an applied mathematician, having never gone to college.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, I didn't even go to college till I was 35. And that was just because my military benefits were about to run out. And I went to the University of Dallas. And while it's a very conservative Roman Catholic school, I studied philosophy and mathematics there. And while I was there, they convinced me of the sacramental vision of the church history and church tradition. So I went from being an atheist to being a sort of a Christian. And while I could never really accept some of the papal theology, I wound up going to Orthodoxy because it's basically Catholicism without the Pope.
Right.
And I became a devout Christian. And my life changed radically there. I had been, I would say, quite hedonistic in the 90s in my youth.
Right.
And
as a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, to the point of actual moral dissipation. It was. I mean, I would spend $800 a month on frivolous drinking and cavorting, and partying. And I've always done well for myself, so I always had lots of money. After I became a Christian, I started giving my money away. And I reduced my possessions, and I actually had considered joining a monastery. In fact, when I met my ex-wife, I was living in an efficiency apartment. I had allowed myself a bookshelf, a desk, a chair, and a computer, and that was it.
Essentials.
Yeah. I had a bedroll that I would sleep on, but I was even in the process of getting rid of even more things. It is a form of fasting and preparing myself for perhaps going into the monastery. But I met my ex-wife. I fell in love with her.
Did you meet her at school, or?
No, we actually met online. She was a physician. She captured me with the cleverness of her writing, and then we hit it off quite well. And she was, I would say, she was liberal, but had some experiences with her family that had caused her to reconsider that. And I think she used me to kind of explore the sort of conservative world of social thinking.
Right.
And eventually she became a whole-on conservative, just like me. She converted to Orthodoxy, just like me. We were married. She had 2 children, which...
From a previous marriage or a previous relationship?
Well, that's the thing. So I was told that they were adopted.
From her? She told you this?
Yes.
Okay.
I later found out that was true in one case, not true in another, and in the case in which it was true, important information had been left out. So when we got married, I'm entering into a stepdad role, which I was very trepidatious about.
Right.
And I find out about a year into the marriage that one of the daughters was indeed adopted, but from her brother, who was a 3-time convicted felon and had exposed this child to methamphetamine in the womb.
Oh, no.
And had done something with food to basically torture her with food. She could not be fed as a child because she had been tortured with food.
Which isn't the child's fault, but it's something that, as someone coming into this relationship, it's good to know.
Yeah.
Just to be prepared for things that could happen.
Yeah.
It would be respectful for you to know?
It set a pattern of a kind of dishonesty
Right.
in our relationship that would repeat over and over again. The other daughter, who is, well, let me just say some good things about the adopted daughter, because I particularly loved her and still do. And she was highly spirited and absolutely ingenious. in the way she thought about the world, and a clever person. And I enjoyed my time with her, and I actually miss that time still. Her other daughter was highly intelligent, forthright, courageous. She was from a sperm donor. She had no father. Those qualities were selected for, in a sperm bank. And that was a little shocking because that's quite a serious violation of the ideas about proper ethical conduct in the Orthodox Church.
Right. Or just as a person, honestly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Another thing that I would have liked to have known, right? Before,
Yeah, I mean, it's respectful.
Yeah.
And especially with your wife being a physician. She's a pediatrician, or
She's
your
a
ex-wife?
pediatrician in Coppell, Texas. Yeah.
You would think that she would know, like, mentally what children are going through and
Yes.
how important that would be for you to know.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So really, we had a wonderful life for 2 years. I have to say, in many ways, it's a life that I still long for in a way. It was exactly the life that I wanted to live in my old age. I had been in the military in my youth. I had lived the commercial life in my middle years, and the idea of spending time with children and having children, and perhaps doing some scholarly writing in my old age was the kind of vision that I had.
Right.
So we got along well. We never had any major conflicts. Nothing. And then we just decided to have children. And she just one day said, "Do you want to have kids?" And I said, "Of course I do. Love to have children."
Right.
Children. In fact, I wanted to have children with her. It turned out that she was too old. And she had no viable eggs, so we used an egg donor. And at the last minute, I was asked, they can implant 2 in case one doesn't work.
Right.
And then we got twin boys.
Okay.
It's
a party.
It was wonderful.
I know. You might as well, right?
Yes. And I was present when they were born, and I was the first one to hold them. And my son, Jude, who is the second born, James is the firstborn. Jude had a very difficult birth. I'm pretty sure without modern medical intervention, he would have died. Yeah.
Oh, man.
I mean, even just medical intervention maybe 50 years ago, he would have probably died. He went straight to the NICU. His vital signs were all messed up. He wasn't right. And so they invited me into the NICU, and they said, just touch his back. Okay, so I just touched my son's back, and within 15 minutes, all of his vitals went to normal.
That's so crazy.
He just needed to be touched by his parents.
Yes.
And I think Jude and I have carried that relationship forward even to today. Jude and I communicate probably 90% non-verbally. We know what the other wants and is thinking. If I'm even uncomfortable on the couch, he knows where to put the pillow. I know when I'm often walking into his room before he wakes up, and he wakes up.
You can feel him waking up.
I
It's
can
almost
tell.
like a twin.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We have that closeness, he and I.
How old are the boys today?
They're 8, about
Okay.
to be 9.
Okay.
Yeah. I named them after the brothers of Jesus, James and Jude. And in the Orthodox tradition, you adopt a Christian name because in the old days, the Christians had pagan names, and many of them were named after the pagan gods, so they took a Christian name. So that becomes your middle name. And so James is named after the saints that I'm named after, Cosmas and Damianos, and they were unmercenary physicians in Syria that gave away their care for free, and Jude was named after the prophet Daniel.
Okay.
So those of you who do pray, those are my child saints. And I have taught them. We have their icons up in the house. We believe every house is a church, and I've taught my boys to emulate their saints. And by and large, interestingly, they have done that. And I wonder if that's the power of prayer, my education, or they were just born that way. I'm not sure.
Maybe all of it.
Yeah, maybe. And they're temperamentally very different. Probably the best way to understand that is through an event where I had an epiphany about my sons when they were very young, maybe like 1.5. I could not understand the modern cartoons. So I would look at Power Rangers, I would say, what is this? I do not know what is going on here. So I just went back to, like, when I was a kid, I watched Johnny Quest. So I went and bought all the Johnny Quest DVDs. And so we're watching stuff from the 1960s where they actually carry guns, they actually fly planes, they're like scaling mountains, they like do real stuff, you know. So we're watching this one called The Invisible Monster. I'll never forget it. That's why I remember the name of it. And there's this one part where the monster is chasing Bandit, the little dog. And James says, "Look, Bandit's running away." And Jude said, "Look, he's scared." And I realized that through the entire cartoon, James had been living the outer life of the characters, and Jude had been living the inner life of the characters. And it was just a really key insight about who my sons were.
Right.
You know? So while they're twins, they're very different. And I have learned so much from them, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which has allowed me to deal with people, adults, in different ways, which I never considered that people would, I'm rather introverted. I think of people's inner lives when I deal with people. I never thought of dealing with them purely from their lives, and I learned that from my son. So there's like little things like that along the way that I cherish those things.
You know, I think it's with you being a little bit older, having your kids too.
I think so. Yeah.
You could be in tune with them or understand them more. I remember having my first daughter at 23. I was still a kid.
Sure.
You know,
You're figuring it out.
I'm just trying to like figure out how to pay for food at that point, not in tune with my kids, you know?
Yeah.
So there is a benefit to that.
I think so.
Well, we're going to talk soon about how things suddenly changed and the pickle that you're in right now.
Okay.
You guys do not want to miss this. It will make you angry and upset. And hopefully enough to where we can do something about this and help Jeff in his journey. We'll be right back. The following are sponsors for today's show. If you'd like to become a sponsor, please visit us at couragetostand.com. Amy Autry offers customized health insurance options. She's licensed and appointed with multiple health insurance and health share companies, so she can review all your health insurance needs, advise, enroll, and support you ongoing with your policy. Amy has over 6 years of experience as a health insurance broker to save you time and money in shopping and enrolling in a customized health plan that fits your needs and budget. Her services are free, so give her a call at 817-809-4409. That's Amy Autry at 817-809-4409. Looking to buy or sell real estate in North Texas? The Neal team with Better Homes and Gardens Winans specialize in residential and farm and ranch properties. Call our friends Donnie and Darla at 903-744-5475 or email neal@winansbhg.com. Just one call, and as Donnie says, the pretty blonde and the ugly cowboy can put the power of two to work for you. Your journey starts here. Again, Donnie and Darla Neal at 903-744-5475. Jara Hutchins owns Clearing the Chamber, a female-owned firearms and self-defense training company that specializes in teaching women, youth, and families how to stay safe. We have a class for everything, including intro to handgun, time management for the gun owner, how to talk to your kids about firearms, license to carry, and how to protect what you're expecting, a class for new and expecting mothers. We have all 5-star reviews on Facebook and respond quickly to your questions. Give us a call at 469-665-9333 or email clearingthechamber@gmail.com and schedule your free consultation. Again, that consultation is free. Just give us a call at 469-665-9333. Welcome back, everybody. I'm here with Jeff Younger. He is in the news today, and not because you want to be.
That's right.
You're going through a really tough time right now, and it's definitely heartbreaking. Can you tell us, you were talking about your sons, Jude and James, and your now ex-wife. Can you tell us what happened? Like, give us the details of what started to really change this whole relationship of this perfect world that you were living.
You know, it started with the usual sort of stormy relationship a stepfather encounters with teenage stepdaughters.
Okay.
And when that process began, there was just a giant flip in my ex-wife's behavior. She began to just distrust everything I said. She didn't allow me like any room in the house. She would always come checking on me and everything. And one of the key events, when I look back on it, she would put my son James into timeout, and she would say, "The monsters only eat boys. Be quiet."
What does that even mean? Like, where do you think she...
I think she was training him from before 2 years old to be a girl. And go ahead.
I just don't understand. Like I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, what is the audience thinking? Like, why would someone want to change their child into a girl? Like, do you have any? Have you ever asked her this, or what do you think?
We have an official answer from the court record. The official answer under sworn testimony is that James chose a girl's toy in a McDonald's Happy Meal, and he wanted to buy a silver purse that had a brightly colored horse on it.
And that makes he wants to be a girl after that.
She literally socially transitioned him after that.
That's literally every boy everywhere.
You're right.
What age was this?
3. If you go out to YouTube and you Google, "Mommy says I'm a girl," you will find a video of my son. It has millions of views. It went viral. It's on many, many channels. And that is me discovering for the first time. It's the first iPhone video I ever took. And he's saying, he's wearing a dish towel on his head. And I said, "Hey man, what are you wearing?" We had just watched Lawrence of Arabia, so I thought, oh, maybe it's Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah.
He says, "No, I'm a girl." And I said, "Oh, okay." We had watched Frozen, so I thought, okay, which character are you from Frozen?
Mm-hmm.
He said, "No, Mommy says I'm a girl." And so I got my iPhone out and I asked him about that. "What did you just say to me?" He said, "Mommy says I'm a girl." And he goes through how Mommy says he has a girl's brain in a boy's body. He wears dresses. His name is Luna. It's not James.
Who came up with the name Luna?
That's interesting. That came out at trial too. So that was not his choice. He never chose a girl's name. When they pushed him to choose a name, he chose Starfire from a cartoon. And they said, "Well, that can't be right. You'll need to pick a girl's." And they pushed him towards Luna.
Okay, wait. The name can't be right, but all this other stuff, that's right.
Correct. It turns out, we find out later, Luna is the name of a famous transgender novel. She began reading him the story of Jazz Jennings. If you know Jazz Jennings in California, he's a boy who went through transgender surgery very young. They put him on cross-sex hormones at 10, and he didn't even have enough penile tissue to do the surgery. They had to use his colon.
So you're saying, oh my gosh.
So she was reading him this story about Jazz Jennings. I'm talking
and he's 3.
3 years old. She's reading him I Am Jazz, at 3. So I'm immediately against this. I tell her to stop doing this. I'm talking about, I'm using every religious argument I can think of. It starts getting worse. She begins to present him publicly as a girl.
Like wearing dresses?
Mm-hmm. She started getting him accustomed to it by taking him to malls and things. And then finally she enrolled him in school as a girl, public school as a girl, in Capel, Texas.
How do you do that without court papers?
Well, that's what the one thing that the court found in my trial was that she had illegally changed his name without my consent. But nevertheless, despite that, and I have another court order. So I've been through so many trials. So I've been through 5 years of litigation. I've spent almost $1 million on this litigation to protect this little boy. And I have 2 court orders that have adjudicated that he's of the male sex, that he's a boy by gender, and his name is James. And the school district will not stop teaching him that he's a girl. In fact, when I took James to school as a boy, his teacher gave him a dress to wear.
She just happened to have a dress there?
I think Anne had left it there. Not sure, but that's what I think.
This is in Capel?
Yeah, Capel, Texas, the Capel Independent School District. I went through the administrative process. It's called the grievance process. And at every stage of the process, they determined they were not violating my parents' rights. They were not harming James. They weren't doing anything wrong.
I just can't believe this.
That's the problem. That's why I'm trying so hard to pass a law.
It's sad that you have to pass a law because it seems like common sense that a child that's 3 years old or anyone, I mean, kids can't even legally smoke cigarettes till they're 18 years
You're right.
old, or go fight in a war till they're 18.
No.
We deem them not, their brain is not fully developed. And you're trying to tell me that this woman thinks that a 3-year-old is deciding their gender at 3 years old.
And it's not just her, and this is the problem. When you talk about common sense, yeah, you can't get a tattoo till you're 18. Parents can't tattoo their children until they're 18, right? We don't let parents tattoo children's faces, right? But we're talking about giving children cross-sex hormones, which permanently sterilizes them and prevents the normal growth of their skeleton. Okay, these kids get osteoporosis in their 20s, life-threatening osteoporosis. We're talking about surgery where they're lopping off healthy body parts. You know, in trial, their experts, we deposed them. They testified that one doctor said she had personally referred over 200 prepubescent girls for total mastectomies. And when we asked her, what is the medical basis for removing healthy body parts? She said, if they cause psychological distress, they're not healthy body parts. That's how crazy these people are. So
But I mean, honestly, if you just thinking about it in common sense, if I think my head makes me crazy, you should chop it off?
That's basically, she literally made the argument that people with body dysmorphia that like think something's wrong with their leg,
just cut it off.
They can amputate it, and that's totally illegal in the United States. You can't do that. But she's saying that if it's transgender, it is legal, right? The reason that's so serious is the American Psychological Association has told all of its members that when a child comes in and presents as a gender that's different from their sex, you must affirm them. You cannot, it is against their standards to help a child identify with their biological sex.
So getting them counseling or anything, because I read that you were ordered counseling.
Oh,
you had to
yes.
pay $5,000 in counseling for you, James, and Jude.
It's $4,000 a month.
A month, but affirming his
Correct.
Gender dysphoria.
Correct. They're required to. They're not allowed to help a child identify with his biological sex. They're not allowed to do that. The Texas Psychological Association, in response to my case, put out a special communication to all of its members here in Texas saying the same thing. So here, my son is emblematic of what's happening. With a 30-minute interview, a pediatrician diagnosed my son with gender dysphoria, despite the fact that he only presents as a girl with his mom, and he presents as a boy with everyone else.
Have you ever tried to put a dress on him at your house?
For a long period of time, I had a dress at his house, in his closet, that he could put on at any time. He was caught in the middle of the night throwing it away. He threw it away.
So it's something like he's just trying to please his mother.
That's right. And the rule for the pediatric community is that it should be persistent, insistent, and consistent. And it's none of those three if he's acting this way. So then she referred him to a gender psychologist named Rebecca. Oh, the pediatrician is at 18 and under MD in Flower Mound. And she's serving children to this day. Parents need to know about this stuff. Don't go to 18 under MD. Then she referred him to a counselor at Rainbow Counseling in Oak Lawn named Rebecca Ower, who in a 1-hour interview diagnosed him with gender dysphoria again without ever talking to me. These people never talk to me.
He's your son. You've lived with them.
Never talked to me. And then she referred him to the Genesis Clinic, which is a gender clinic, to explore, and this came out in the medical records, quote, the medical side of treatment at 8 or 9.
Y'all, the Genesis Clinic is right here in Dallas.
Children's Hospital.
In Children's Hospital, where kids can go seek medical advice for their gender dysphoria.
They chemically castrate kids there. That's what the clinic is created for. They give them puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones. So at that point, I realized it was going to have to be all-out resistance.
Yeah.
So I lawyered up. I denied consent for them to treat my son at the Genesis Clinic, and we went to trial. I asked for complete conservatorship rights. The jury declined to do that. The jury made us joint managing conservators, and we have equal shared parenting rights right down the line. I can't exercise any parenting right without her consent, and she can't exercise any without my consent. Mm-hmm. And that let me stop her from chemically castrating him at 8. But it was just, as you can see, it was a close run thing.
But that is so crazy because she's putting him in danger.
She is. So now what's happened is the court ordered that I had to have family counseling with my sons. There were 9 things that they had to cover with me. It was things like loving your kids unconditionally, knowing about signs of bullying, things like that, right? They were supposed to, in January or June, that's in the order, grant me 50-50 custody and no child support. And the 50-50 custody is really important because he needs to spend more time with men and with me, with his dad, to balance out what his mom has done. The counselors have delayed it and delayed it and delayed it. So now here we are. We're a year and a quarter later. I still don't have 50-50 possession. I'm still paying $40,000 a year in child and medical support. I'm still under a $4,000 a month counseling order. And when these counselors start to work with my son, they refuse to see my son as a boy when he comes from my house.
They call him Luna and treat him as a girl.
Correct. And they refuse to see him when he's James with me.
This is a big problem in Texas, I know for sure, because dads, just like this, clear all of this stuff about James, dads are not getting 50% custody of their children, and they're perfectly capable of taking care of their kids. That needs to be recognized quickly, number one.
Yes.
And number two, she's putting him in danger, and you can't even...
Yeah. And I've been through 7 CPS, well, there's been 7 total in the case. And CPS is so terrified of this issue that they just say neither parent is abusing the child.
And they want out of it.
So what's clear is the agencies, the schools, the courts, CPS, they all need legislative guidance. And we have to have laws against this. And that's what I've been working really hard to do. And now they're using all kinds of legal maneuvers to try to shut me up prior to...
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, I thought you'd appreciate that.
Well, we did speak. I think there was a rally that we had late last year where we spoke about, and we were outside the judges, not at the judge's house, but at the park, talking about gender dysphoria. Me being a teacher, having one of the students, it was worse for the student than it was for any of the other kids. We had to go through personal training as teachers.
Yeah.
We couldn't use the improper pronouns, even though I'm looking directly at the sex. And the kids are looking at me like, what do we do? And they get in trouble for laughing. It's like, it creates a mess. Why not just wait till you're 18 like every other thing they have to wait for?
Here's the startling fact. If you wait until they go through puberty, depending on the study you look at, the low end is 80%, the high end is 99% of these children grow out of it and come to identify with their biological sex.
Well, imagine that.
That's why the leftists, the practitioners of what I call identity medicine, you have identity politics, these practitioners, these wicked practitioners of identity medicine, that's why they want to block puberty so early.
Well, they'd be out of business.
It's the cure. Puberty is the cure for gender dysphoria. So they block the cure, and then they get a kid on a $4 million lifetime medication stream. Every child they treat is a $4 million lifetime income stream.
Well, and it also, not just those drugs, but the other drugs they're going to need for the osteoporosis and all the other problems that they're going to have.
That's right.
So you were awarded 50-50 custody in the latest trial, but now they're calling you back to court.
Yeah, because I refuse to allow him to see counselors who will affirm him as a girl, because I have 2 court orders saying he's a boy. And because they refuse to see him when he's dressed as a boy from my house. They'll only see him from her house when he's dressed as a girl. I again, used my parental rights and removed consent for them to treat my son. What they're doing is harmful to my son. I'm a fit parent. I've adjudged that what they're doing is harmful. So the opposing counsel is claiming that I am denying counseling to the boys, which is endangering their emotional well-being. And so they have filed a motion to strip me of my parental rights.
Completely.
All of them. And this is done under the guise of temporary orders prior to go to trial. So it could take us 2 years with COVID to go to trial. So during that time, the temporary orders determine how we live. Temporary orders can't be appealed.
Right, once they decided, and if they think you're unfit, it's almost like you're beating them.
Correct.
You don't get to see them.
And then you live under these arrangements for 2 years, and it becomes a fait accompli when you get to trial. So they really want to do this because it's not appealable, and it establishes the pattern all the way into trial. They've also found 5 occasions in which I paid my child support, but I paid it past the due date of the first. Most of the time this happens because the antiquated payment system that Texas uses.
It's horrible.
Yeah, it will.
It's
have you used
horrible.
it? You've used it.
Yes.
So you know how it will give you a payment confirmation and it never comes out of your bank. So you have to like constantly check your bank to make sure it got paid. So they went to you may not know this, they went to a new system, I believe in February. And for whatever reason, it wouldn't take my card on file. It never notified me, it never did anything. So I got 30 days behind, and then I went to pay it the next month. I said, oh, there's an arrears, so I just paid it all. 2 days later, I got served with a lawsuit saying that you've been late on 5 times in 5 years, you've been late on child support. So we want you to spend 6 months in jail, spend 10 months on 10 years on community supervision, and they want to put up a $300,000 surety bond.
They want to shut you up.
They want to shut me up, so they want to take my money away. They want me in jail past the end of this legislative session.
You have no money. You cannot sue her. You can't try to get your son back or save your son's life, honestly,
That's right.
is what it is.
That's what they want to do.
So you have a Facebook page?
I do.
Save James?
Yep. You go onto Facebook, search for Save James. There's a donation link, and that goes to legal expenses.
He's going to have over $1 million now in legal expenses. Ask me, I know about legal expenses.
Yeah,
they're crazy.
they're crazy.
But we're doing this to save James's life. There's no way that he needs to stay with his mother. He cannot stay with his mother. Least amount is at least 50-50, and that should be with any divorce
With
case
any divorce.
when both parents are fit.
It's a whole nother conversation. There's 3 laws that I have considered Save James laws that are out there at the legislature right now. The first one is HB 68, which is sponsored by Representative Toth, which classifies these procedures as child abuse.
We love Steve Toth.
He's amazing.
Steve Toth, thank you so much for looking. This is a tough subject, so thank you. And what are the other two?
He's a true Texas patriot. The other is HB 1399, and this bill would outlaw the procedure. So it makes it illegal for the doctors to do it, and if they do perform it, all liability protections are removed for lawsuits.
And is that chemical or just the physical castration?
It addresses both.
Okay,
it addresses
perfect.
both. You cannot do the chemical, what I call the chemical castration. You cannot administer puberty blockers or hormones for the purposes of transgender, changing the gender of a child. You can still administer it for precocious puberty for girls or other medical conditions.
Yep.
There are valid reasons to do it for a short period of time, maybe 6 months. It's actually not known what happens when children have these for longer than 6 months. There have been no studies done on it. It's actually considered an experimental use of the drug, and none of the clinics are following the experimental protocols and safeguards required by the FDA.
So your son's a guinea pig?
Yes, all these children are.
Is there a third bill you said?
There's a third bill, which I don't remember the number, but it's an equal shared parenting bill.
Perfect.
Which would say that whenever you get joint conservatorship of a child, that there would be 50-50 custody. Now, you understand Title 4D and the incentives of Title 4D. This is one of the most evil bills that the federal government has ever passed. It has destroyed middle-class families in this country, and you will get no support for ending it from the state. The Texas Attorney General's office gets reimbursement funds from the federal government for the collection of child support. And in fact, there's a statute which requires the family courts to rule in such a way as to always maximize Title 4D reimbursement funds. If you have 50-50 custody, nobody pays child support, and so there are no reimbursement funds, and the state doesn't get any money.
They don't like that.
How much money are we talking about? Texas gets $750 million from this program, and it all goes to the Texas Attorney General's office. Its entire budget is funded from the reimbursement from collection of child support. So I had a situation where my ex-wife was denying me custody. I called the Attorney General to see if they would support it. They said, no, it's not our job to help you get custody. Our job is to collect child support. And they're actually legally correct. That is their only job.
We have a lot of problems in Texas, but as far as breaking apart a nuclear family and not giving dad support, that's one of the biggest problems we have. So we definitely want to thank Steve Toth for this bill that's coming up, and I think we're hearing it coming up this week soon. I'm going to be there.
Excellent.
Are you going to be there?
Yes, I'm going to be there.
Tim and I are going to be there.
Okay, great.
But anyway, on Facebook, Save James, where you can donate to Jeff Younger, and you can read all about this story. I know it seems like it's not even real. It is. And this is not just him that's fighting this, but he will be the voice, and hopefully we can get James Law passed or something like it to save these kids from this horrible destruction. Don't forget to go to Facebook page Save James so you can help James and Jeff in their journey. We don't have a lot of time, so he's going to need some funding for this. Don't forget to share our show everywhere. That's the only way we get this message out. And thank you all, especially Jeff, for having the courage to stand.